or be around is to enter everything that I not only have contempt for, but dislike and think should be stomped out. Greed, treachery, stupidity, cupidity, positive power of lying, total contempt for any sort of human constructive political instinct. Everything that's wrong with America, everything that this country has demonstrated as a national trait that the world defines repugnant. The bully instinct, the power grab, the dumbness, the insensitivity. Nixon represents everything that's wrong with this country.
On a series of bizarre attacks, dozens of unexplained illnesses, including head injuries, forced the U.S. to bring home diplomatic staff from China and the U.S. Embassy in Cuba. Speculation at the time was that it was some sort of sonic attack, but now the scientist who led the investigation tells the New York Times the main culprit is likely some kind of microwave weapon. CNN's Patrick Ottman is following the story from Havana. So, Patrick, what happened at the U.S. Embassy that led authorities to suspect that it was indeed an attack? And now we're talking about these, a microwave weapon.
It's still very much a diplomatic mystery, but let me walk you through what is a very complicated case. It all began November 2016, right after the U.S. presidential election, and that is when U.S. diplomats based here in Havana said they begin to experience these really strange symptoms, often at night, sometimes while they're in bed, asleep, in their homes or their hotel rooms here in Cuba, and they said that they would feel nausea, hear loud sounds, hearing loss, but if they got up out of bed, if they left the room where they were in, it would stop. If they walked back into where they had felt this incident, this attack as they described it, it would start again. So they felt that they were being targeted with some sort of mysterious beam of energy. Initially, they complained to Cuban authorities about what they felt they were being targeted with sonic weapons, and these are weapons that do exist, usually used for crowd control. But experts consulted by CNN at the time, said that sonic weapons really don't work like that. They don't usually cause someone to hear a noise, and they're much too large to be used in this capacity. Now we have scientists that have met and helped treat some of those diplomats, coming out and saying that perhaps it's a microwave weapon. This is also a weapon, but much more portable, that shoots a beam of energy, and it can be pinpointed in the way these diplomats described both here in Cuba and in China, and that it can actually cause people to think they're hearing sounds, but this is just a symptom of this beam of energy that's being directed at people, and it can cause these kinds of symptoms. One of the researchers told CNN it causes concussion without actually causing a concussion, the immaculate concussion, they said. So again, we don't know very little bit about these weapons because so few countries use them. Cuban authorities say there is no evidence, though, that the diplomats were ever targeted here. They have called on the U.S. to release more information about this. So right now, it may be one piece of still a very big puzzle, Fred.
It is mysterious, but there are a couple things from that reporting, that there is some place of blame, or at least looking seriously at Russia. And then the other is, it's not just a very disturbing high-pitched noise, but there might even be voices or a message, a continual message that people have been victimized by, this sound. That there's this kind of messaging coming from it. What more do we know about that, or who is adding any credence to that?
There are a number of it's really fascinating stuff. There are a number of countries, including the former Soviet Union and now Russia, that have microwave weapon programs going back decades. There's some evidence that they've been used in other countries against U.S. diplomats. This was a very active program the USSR had. Again, still no evidence that they were used here, hard evidence they're used in Cuba, but it seems to fit the scenario. Now, the Cuban officials here said we would never allow this to be used, but of course, in a country like Cuba, it's impossible to imagine that a third actor could come in and use these weapons without the Cuban officials knowing. They have allowed the FBI to come in. They have allowed Canadian investigators, because there's some Canadian diplomats that have complained of similar symptoms, and they have turned up nothing. But in a way, you read about these weapons and these weapons programs that did exist, and it's kind of the perfect weapon because it leaves no trace.
American embassy staffers in Cuba. One diplomat in China now confirmed to have suffered what the U.S. government calls health attacks. Now a mother is speaking out for the very first time in this NBC News exclusive. Last year, Catherine Werner, a U.S. diplomat stationed in China, told her parents she was experiencing strange sounds and sensations in her apartment. Her health was declining rapidly.
Just struggling, and she's just a shell of what she was.
Her mother, Laura Hughes, an Air Force veteran, was so alarmed, she quickly booked a flight to China.
You notice when something's wrong with your children, and there was something very wrong with Catherine.
Laura tried replacing the apartment's air filters and buying imported food. Nothing helped. And then Laura says she started feeling it too.
We heard a very high-pitched sound in Catherine's bedroom, and we heard a very low pulsing sound in the living room. Our heads would pulse. You would feel like you would want to regurgitate. You could become instantly paralyzed, instantaneously fatigued.
Laura has also developed visual problems, including sensitivity to light, which is why she's wearing dark glasses today. It's similar to what U.S. diplomats in Cuba reported feeling, and what the U.S. government now says were targeted health attacks. As mother and daughter struggled, Laura says their dogs also began acting strangely.
They'd be shivering under the bed when we returned to the apartment. They would vomit blood. They didn't want to go back into the apartment after long walks. And they would run down the hallway and stop just where the living room begins and just sit there. And their heads would move simultaneously. We were so scared. We didn't know what could they possibly be looking at.
After 3 months, Laura, unable to tolerate it any longer, headed back to the U.S. 3 weeks later, the State Department medevaced Catherine out of China.
The doctors diagnosed Catherine with traumatic brain injury. Their findings were the same as they found for the U.S. diplomats from Cuba.
Attorney Mark Zaid represents Catherine and many of the Havana diplomats affected.
There are things that are identified in their MRIs and CAT scans as showing traumatic brain injury that shouldn't be there for people who have never had concussions.
The State Department brought in outside experts. Their findings? The victims appear to suffer from a new type of brain network disorder. Who or what caused it? A mystery.
The United States government is still not sure who or what is responsible for those health attacks,
leaving Laura Hughes and so many others in the dark.
I, too, have been diagnosed by the same doctors through the VA hospital in Philadelphia with traumatic brain injury.
In total, 16 Americans posted in China were evacuated after reporting sounds or symptoms. But other than Catherine, the U.S. says none of them are considered confirmed cases.
Some people have suggested that maybe it's all psychosomatic, mass hysteria.
Science doesn't lie. These scientists and these doctors and specialists have been working very hard and long on us. There is no way you can fake this.
Have they told you or Catherine whether this is permanent damage?
Yes, it looks like it.
The NIH is now studying the syndrome, but Laura is calling on the State Department to do more.
I do not believe that our military or diplomats are safe because this weapon system is creating havoc.
Do you worry that this could happen to other diplomats in other countries?
That's why I'm here. That is why I'm here.
And Hughes is speaking out, she says, because her daughter and the other diplomats cannot without fear of losing their jobs. Many told NBC they fear the government is downplaying what happened. The State Department says it took quick and decisive action after confirming a case in China and is providing employees with the best medical care back here in the U.S.
You hear from the mother and daughter, and it's so convincing, and then you hear about the pets, and you think to yourself, oh my gosh, so you wonder, like, what is causing this? What kind of weapon could they be using?
They're still investigating, Hoda. The strange sounds initially pointed to a sonic weapon, but an FBI report this year ruled that out.
Now, U.S. officials tell NBC News they are considering the possibility of an electromagnetic weapon, which could cause brain damage. Certainly a lot more reporting we've got to do on this.
My goodness.
Stay on it when you think about her saying it's likely permanent in those classes because the light bothers her. And the other diplomats and military out there.
Andrea, thank you.
Good reporting.
Would provide what you call a relevant metric for the number of law-abiding Americans who were swept up in the FISA 702 searches. This morning, you went back on that promise, and you said that even putting together a sampling, a statistical estimate, would jeopardize national security. I think that is a very, very damaging position to stake out. We're going to battle it out in the course of this because there are a lot of Americans who share our view that security and liberty are not mutually exclusive. We can have both. You rejected that this morning. You went back on a pledge, and I think it is damaging to the public. Now let me...
Senator, could I answer the question?
Mr. Director, my time is short, and I want to ask you about one other 702.
Well, I would like to answer your question.
Briefly.
What I pledged to you in my confirmation hearing is that I would make every effort to try to find out.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Why we were not able to come to a specific number of collection on U.S. persons. I told you I would consult with Admiral Rogers. I told you I would go to the National Security Agency to try to determine whether or not I was able to do that. I went out there, I talked to them, they went through the technical details. There were extensive efforts on the part of, I learned, on the parts of NSA to try to...
Do or do not. There is no try.
Come to get you an appropriate answer. We were not able to do that.
Respectfully, that's not what you said.
And you ass ain't talking the way I did.
You said, and I quote, "We are working to produce a relevant metric." Now let me go to my other question.
But we were not able to do that, to achieve it. So working to do it is different than doing it.
There is no try.
You told the American people that even a statistical sample would be jeopardizing America's national security. That is inaccurate and I think detrimental to the cause of ensuring we have both security and liberty. Now here's my other question. We are trying to sort out
Can the witness
who the
respond?
target.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration? I didn't mean to do that. What's the matter? Oh, you were finished. Oh, well, allow me to retort.
Who are the targets?
Apparently not.
Who are the targets of a 702 investigation. Director Comey gave 3 different answers in a hearing a month ago. And I think it would be very helpful if you would tell us who, in fact, is a target of these investigations. I want to go after serious foreign threats, but we don't know as of now, with Director Comey having given 3 different answers, who the targets are. Mr. Director.
Well, I can't speak for former Director Clapper. Targets, as I understand, are non-U.S. persons. Foreign individuals are the targets in terms of 702 is directed and it's been prohibited from directing targets on U.S. persons.
What country you from? What ain't no country I ever heard of? They speak English and what?
My time is up. I will tell you, Director Comey gave 3 answers. He finally said I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think it's confined to counterterrorism, to espionage, and finally he said he didn't think a diplomat could be targeted. So we need you all, in addition to protecting the liberties of the American people, to tell us who the targets are. Thank you, Chairman.
I would like to respond to that by saying some of these targets are classified, highly classified.
I understand that.
Some of those targets, and by revealing those names of those targets, release the methods that we use, and then is turned against us, and could cost the lives or put some of our agents in.
English, motherfucker! Do you speak it? Yes. Then you know what I'm saying.
Mr. Comey listed a number of targets, which is why there's confusion. He said that on the record. We need you to tell us on the record as well, consistent with protecting sources and methods.
You read the Bible, Greg? Yes. Well, there's this passage I got memorized on this. Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother.
we are unaware of. And my own feeling about this tends to vacillate. I have had contact experiences. I have seen a UFO very close. I have met with entities from other dimensions, and it has not impelled me to take a strong position. I paid very close attention when these experiences were happening to me, and there always seemed to be loose ends that argue against whatever hypothesis seems currently most attractive. And though Jacques didn't mention it today, I recall in his book, The Invisible Colleague, he stressed the absurdity that seems to attend the contact experience, that if the contactees will truly tell the unvarnished truth, then there will be elements in the story which will make the contactee look like a moron. In other words, the invalidation of the experience is an inimical part of its structure, almost as though the entities were saying, well, you may tell this story if you wish, but if you tell it truthfully, you'll be taken for a fool. Well, there's nothing wrong with being taken for a fool, except that it does steal the phenomenon rather nicely away from the very sober ladies and gentlemen who are making their careers in some branch of science. They are not interested in investigating the kinky, the anecdotal, the possibly pathological.
So, been explaining things about, how everything works with the mind control and stuff. So I decided to make a video for my targeted people, because I know it's annoying being targeted 24/7, and it's just, attack after attack after attack, and then it never ends, So I want to teach you how to defend yourself, because this thing is everywhere. It's just like the Bible said. Everybody has it. Everyone has it. Not everyone, but most people have it. Some people know how to defend themselves, like monks and stuff like that. They seek peace, total peace. And like I said, it's just like the Bible says. They beam their energy at us, right? They do whatever. The moment they get you paranoid, because there's so many of them. Everywhere you go, they're, attacking you from all type of directions, and they take turns, so it's not just one person attacking you.
I find out towards the end, and see, these are just things that I find out afterwards, because it's 3 hours, and I have to go through it, and then at the timeline, when he says something, then I jot it down, and I go back to it. But yesterday is when I learned that Trump is going to have a meeting on the second month and the 27th day of the month. Literally. He's literally going to have that meeting between the 27th into the 28th. Take notice, again, how he's talking about the day before and then the day after. Evening, morning. Same thing I've been saying. Evening, morning. from the one day into the next. I guess it's just a coincidence, right? That's just what it is. So he's going to meet with Kim Jong-un, and and also if you just go to Genesis 7 and 8, you'll see that Trump is literally saying every scenario, every number imaginable that those two verses talk about. He's basically reading those two verses and constantly coming back with the same numbers. And he loves talking about 15 and 150. But he'll use other numbers as if it means something, like 150 million or 150,000. But he's really referring to the 150 days that he started on December 21st into the 22nd, when the government shut down partially for the next 35 days exactly, till he signs an extension for the next 21 days exactly, and then talking about how shortly how does he word it? It's not, the way he words it with the 115 miles of wall is where he'll have 115 miles shortly, short space of time. So he's not saying it where he already has 115 miles of wall, like 115.
As a targeted individual. Again, it's with the heavy heart that I have to make this video. And I want to begin this part with the prayer. Heavenly Father, I just thank you first and foremost for life. Thank you for the 31 years that I've spent here on this earth. Thank you, Lord, for salvation. Thank you for dying on the cross for my sins. And I just thank you for just being you. You sacrificed so much so that our sins would be forgiven. And Father, I ask that you forgive me my sins, all my past sins, all my present sins, and all my future sins. God,
had a hell of a night last night. If you're not awake, I don't need your negative feedback. I don't need you to criticize. I don't need any negativity. If you want to label me as crazy or whatever, that I do drugs, yada yada yada. Just keep the comments to yourself. I don't need any more negative energy being forced on my energy just because you're having a shitty day and just because football and Fox News and 9 to 5 is more important to you than what's really going on. Anyways, so last night, good morning everybody, it's Joey, and so, you know, I definitely feel the push by the Holy Spirit to make this video. My channel's not very popular. But again, I've said before, and I'll say it again, these videos are more for me making them for myself. But I definitely feel the burning desire within me to speak to, again, some of these videos, most of these videos being made out there about targeted individuals and gang stalking. I don't know what the deal is, but it seems to me that many targeted individuals are looking for validation, and I get it. I totally get that. You want to be validated. I wanted to be validated. I needed to be heard about what was going on with me.
Actually, I want to talk about being a targeted individual. I've been in this program for about a little bit more than 2 years. Initially, I didn't know I was in the program. What happened to me is really strange. It's a lot.
The thing is, you're angry all the time.
I am not angry all the time.
Yes, you are. You're always bringing up fucked up shit.
I don't want to bring it up anymore.
You do it all the time.
But I'm still going through it. You're not. I am.
That means A. No. A. You have a lot of anger and resentment that you have not let go.
And that's my bad.
Obviously, you haven't forgiven.
I have a court case coming up, and a lot of it's coming up, and I'm sorry. That's not my fault. I'm sorry.
The fact that you're constantly, what have you done for me? Why can't you say one nice thing about me? I mean, there's always something that I've done wrong that you're always pointing out. Okay, so obviously you have a lot of anger. You haven't forgiven anything. You hold on to these issues.
Throw a shout out to you guys, and I don't know if you guys are experiencing this or not. I just came across something that's pretty bizarre, and you guys might want to check. I don't know where you guys get your cell phones at. I mean, TIs are cheap. We don't have a lot of money. I was getting mine at Walmart. You know, I tried every brand they had. Everything got hacked into. What I started noticing though with the smartphones is they started coming with basically a hard case and casing that was inside of the smartphone, so it wasn't easily accessible in order to like take it apart and get underneath it and kind of look around in it. What I found is one of my smartphones, the screen shattered, and it was shattered for a long time. I've been using it to get online and stuff like that. I use like 3 different phones. Sometimes, if they're hacking into one, I use another one. I'll swap, cards from one to another, basically, so I can hide evidence from them. And so I do a lot of that swapping around, and I don't even have any of them hooked up to any mobile networks, but they'll show that they're hooked up to mobile networks. So somebody's tapping in and paying for my phone to be on a mobile network so that they can hack into it. So that's how crazy this thing is with the hacking. I don't know if you guys are going through something similar to that, but what I'm going to point out tonight is going to be something that is very, very odd. And you guys need to look very closely at your guys' smartphones. And all of our smartphones are coming like this. You might want to start staying away from your smartphones as much as possible. And I'm going to show you why right now. Okay, so I mentioned that my screen shattered on my smartphone. So I've been carrying it around. Well, one day I was coming in the front door, I was getting in the front door, and I dropped it. I dropped the one with the shattered lens. Well, I got lucky because I thought it landed on the shattered side. I was like, oh, it's done. It didn't. It landed on the opposite side of the shattered side. So it landed on the back of it. Well, when it landed on the back of it, some stuff started coming out onto the actual underneath the lens, okay? And it was this black goo looking kind of liquid stuff. And I was like, that's really strange. What the hell is that? So I couldn't get on it anymore because I couldn't basically, it was too much on the screen where I couldn't push, put in my code and stuff. So I was like, it's done, Decided to take it apart. Well, I went ahead and I took it apart, and I'm going to show you what I found. So first off, I want to show you, this is what I found. This is this liquid stuff, okay? Now, the odd thing about this liquid stuff, okay, this black goo that's underneath the screen of my phone, is when I turn it off, okay, I got my loop out, and when I turn the actual screen off, I take the battery out so it has no power whatsoever. And I look at it, the black stuff through a loop, it actually is circuiting, okay? It has blue, green, and red circuitry. There's lighting inside of it, guys. It's actually energized by itself with no battery, no power, nothing. So I don't know what this stuff is, okay? And if it's the actual black goo, it's basically used to like bring negative consciousness into our awareness, and it just basically brings down your vibration level so that you're more unaware consciously. And so if that's the factor, they're putting these in all the smartphones. Who knows what else they could be using this stuff for? I mean, nobody knows anything about this stuff. It's like some people think it's alien, this black goo stuff. So I'm gonna see if I can turn it off and see if you guys can actually see it. Because when I turned it off last time, you could see the circuitry a little bit still. And I'm gonna see if I can get it close enough so that you guys can actually see it. So I'm gonna turn it off now. I don't know if I can even turn it off without having to, probably have to take the battery out. Oh, it went off. Wait, maybe not. So let me take the battery out. Hang on just a second, guys. I'm gonna pause it for just a sec. But you can see the black goo everywhere. See that? Isn't that weird? So hang on just a sec. Okay, so anyway, I'm trying to get, like, if I could get some light on it. Bear with me one more sec. Okay, so anyway, let's see if I can get close enough so you guys can see. Looking at my screen here. Hang on a second. Oh, shit. I don't know if I can get close enough so you guys can see it. I'm trying to get it focused now. Really close. I don't think I can do it on this. I don't think I can do it with the smartphone here. Yeah, I can't get close enough to it, unfortunately, but to actually show you what it actually does, it's actually lighting up. Underneath there, it's like you can see the circuitry on it. And it's crazy, guys. I mean, you actually see it. It's still like the substance is like, it's energetic. I mean, it has its own circuitry.
You're taking a picture of me?
No, video.
You're videoing me?
Yes.
Whoa. I was gonna give you a card here if you want it.
Okay, I do.
Okay. Give me a second, I'll be right back.
You guys have cameras right up here, and I've been trying to get evidence for a long time that no one will do anything.
Okay.
I'm in the sheriff department right now of the Marshall.